Canada is officially designating specific critical minerals as a national security priority under the Defence Production Act. This enables the federal government to support the mining industry, in some cases by finding a guaranteed buyer or a minimum price for the minerals. We are joined by John Kirton, political science professor at the University of Toronto and director of the G7 Research Group. John, thanks very much indeed for joining us. So metals, metal processing used to be an obscure area of the market, but it's front and center politically these days.
Indeed it is. We in Canada, of course, going back to the beginning of the nuclear age, have long known that uranium, where Saskatchewan is one of the biggest producers in the world, is a key critical mineral for weapons for civilian nuclear power on which Canada heavily depends. But now we're becoming conscious that there's dozens of others in that category. And unlike uranium, for the others, China has a stranglehold over the production, the processing, the sales, manipulating the global market on all the others. So the G7 energy and environment ministers in their meeting at Toronto on Thursday and Friday said, enough is enough, no more. And they came together to do many new things and mobilize the power, the money of the private sector to credibly say that, as Secretary of the Treasury in the United States, Scott Bessent, said, it'll take 2 years, but by then China will no longer have us in our grip. The democracies will be free of what the authoritarians in China and in other countries want to do to us.
We have a brief list of just some of the projects that Canada is set to support in various ways, including Nouveau Mond's graphite mine in Quebec. A Norwegian company wants to build a graphite plant in St. Thomas, Ontario. And then there's a mineral processing facility in Kingston, Ontario. So the country is putting up money here to help. One of the interesting things is, that's come out, is that the government is willing to offer a minimum purchase price for these metals because critics of China say, well, the Chinese will just turn around and flood the market and try to make the price collapse to drive newcomers away.
That's right. So that too was critical, as was the decision of the Canadian government to invoke the Defence Production Act to provide a direct taxpayers' money to start buying 3 critical minerals right away. And the deals that Canada and fellow G7 firms and governments announced, unleashed, included some of the big names, Rio Tinto, for example, Eni, the great energy producers. So yes, the money critically going to the small firms, the startups, so they can scale up, but would also get some of the biggest players in the global energy industry into the game, backing this new initiative.
We have a chart, rather disturbing, just showing how China has dominance in these materials, including, wow, more than 90% of graphite production or processing.
Yes, and I think it was encouraging that if you look at the subjects of the first 6 where the deals were signed at the ministers' meeting, they began with graphite, right? The one where we most need to move. But as you go down the list, I think all Canadians know that even those that don't live in Sudbury, right, that we've long been a big nickel producer. Tech Cominco will speak of, zinc, others of copper, Dr. Copper, which, moves markets historically. So I think the list of what we're doing nicely coincides with the particular critical minerals where China, before the G7 got into action, had the greatest grip.
I wonder, is it too late, though? I mean, it's taken China decades to build up the expertise and the plant here. The West just slept. I mean, some of this stuff is horribly polluting. We were happy to let them do our dirty work. Can we really catch up?
Oh, yeah. And I think, as I said, Scott Besson said, it'll take 2 years, but that's pretty fast in the scheme of things. And another reason I think why it's a full court press, to use a basketball analogy, is we know that China beat us badly with its state support for solar panels, windmills, and now is doing so with electric vehicles. But critical minerals are different. We just don't need them for our consumer convenience at low cost. They're critical to national security. We need them for our nuclear weapons even more, or as much as we need them for safe civilian nuclear power. We need them for our guided missiles. We need them for all the things that Ukraine needs to win the war against Putin's aggression. And that's why another great advance from the Toronto meetings was firm support backed by real money to help secure and rebuild Ukraine's energy system, which was being damaged every night, as it was when the ministers met for dinner Thursday evening. And their guest, the Ukrainian energy minister, was on her iPhone updating her G7 colleagues every few minutes about a Russian hit that took another plant in Ukraine out and killed and wounded more Ukrainian civilians. So national security, I think, was the overall driver of the success of Toronto. And that's why I think our foreign minister, Anita Anand, sees the moment appeared to do even more. And she's going to be hosting in the Niagara region in about a week or 10 days, the G7 foreign ministers meeting. So we really will have a fast follow-up there to build on what Toronto did last week.
Anita Anand, the Foreign Affairs Minister. John, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
John Kirton, Political Science Professor at the University of Toronto and Director of the G7 Research Group.